I really love For My Dogs because it's a contextualization as well as a verbalization of an allegiance of brotherhood. You know, the unity of men, black men from the street, especially given that era. It's so interesting to hear these men place emphasis and detail upon loyalty, respect, love, integrity. You know, it's so interesting to hear the emphasis that they place upon the brotherhood that they share with one another. You know, listening to the song, understanding the lyricism. Of course, some of it is quite literal. Most of it is very figurative, or it could be, you know, however you want to interpret it. But a lot of the language used may be a bit vulgar, it may be a bit explicit. But when you're reading upon the lines, when you're reading the lyrics, and even if you choose to read between the lines, between what is being said, between the instrumentals and the hand claps and the gestures and the tones and the inflections of that overall song, you still get a sense of just the depth, the profound depth of their love for one another. You know, the severity, the intensity, the austerity of that song, of the lyricism, of the inflections of their voice, of their tone. You know, it really encapsulates this love, this loyalty, this friendship, this bond. They're not bonded from flesh and blood. They're bonded because they want to be bonded, because they've chosen loyalty and friendship and whatever entails being a part of a fellowship or a brotherhood. And I really just thought that was interesting, you know, especially for that era. A lot of men back in the day, especially down south, given that a lot of black people first started down south before they migrated up north, you know, coming from slavery, coming from segregation, coming from all these different systems of oppression. The black men from the 60s, 70s, 80s, even 90s, and even the 2000s, they did not know how to express their love for their male counterparts. May it be their own father, may it be their son. They just did not know how to express that type of love. Not saying that all black men did not express their love verbally, or that they were not able to contextualize their love for their loved ones, but for a lot of black men, they just did not say that they love their son, or say that they love their father per se, or say that they love their male figures in their life. They just did it. Like, it was like, do not say. I will do for you, but I'm not going to say what I've done. You know, you should already know what is being done and what it means. Like, for example, if my father was turning 16, because I know he's probably had similar experiences like this, given some of the things that he's told me from his childhood. So say my father has a birthday coming up and it's his 16th birthday. His father wants to ensure that he, you know, has a good birthday. So my dad tells him, like, hey, I don't want anything for my birthday but some Air Force Ones. His dad is going to work for those Air Force Ones because he loves his son, because he wants to see his son happy. So on his birthday, he gets his Air Force Ones, but he doesn't get told, like, I love you, son. Just in giving that gift to his son, just in gifting that gift to his son, that's an expression of his love. You know, it seemed like back in the day, the only type of love language that was used was the means of gift giving. It wasn't words of affirmation. It wasn't, you know, physical touch, like I'm hugging my son or I'm giving my son a kiss on the head. It was just like, all right, son, see you later, or all right, son. All right, son. You know, it was a lot of that, especially when I go to see my grandfather and I see my father and his dad interact with one another. It's always this firm shoulder grasp, like, all right, son. Like, whenever we're getting ready to leave my granddad's house, it's always like, all right, son. But when he's doing, all right, son, he's really saying, like, all right, I love you, son. I'm so glad you came to see me. I'm proud of you. Your family's beautiful. Be blessed. I love you. Stay safe. And just that one shoulder grasp, that's what he's saying, but he doesn't say that. So that's why I feel like this song is really interesting to me, and it's so profound because of the expressed love within this song, because they're verbalizing, because they were able to contextualize a love that existed deep within. You know, for a lot of black men, I feel like their perception was always of an onion. But when you really look at the black man and you really look at black people in general, we're not onions, but we're more so artichoke. If you reveal, or if you, you know, peel the layers of an artichoke, you find the heart. You see the heart. And I feel like this song is like an artichoke song. You peel the layers and you really listen to what the message is intended, you'll hear the heart of these men professing their, undying loyalty and love and respect for their fellow brother, for their dog. So I thought that was really interesting.
My dog, this is for my dog. This is for my dog. This is for my dog. Just trail like that. Give him chill. I do I make him feel like that. From the roof, they get a quickie for real. Feel the pain, feel the joy of a man with a step of a boy.
Alright, and the next song that I want to share with you all is Look Through My Eyes by DMX. This is going to be the last song that I share from It Is Hot, or It Is Dark. It's dark and hell is hot. That's going to be the last song that I share from this album. But Look Through My Eyes, something that I found to be profoundly interesting, and I hate to say profound as often as I have, so maybe should I say riveting. Something that I found to be extremely riveting was the last and final verse that he used to conclude the song, and it was, feel the pain, feel the joy of a man who was never a boy, for real. And I think this lyric really stuck out the most to me because of its simplicity, but the complexity of what he's saying. Feel the pain, feel the joy of a man who was never a boy. DMX was born in the 70s. My mom was born in 1977. My dad was born in 1976. Born in the 70s, you dealt with a lot of stuff. For my mom, her dad fought in Vietnam. For DMX, growing up where he grew up in the metropolitan areas of the world, the cities, the urban areas, he grew up withstanding the crack epidemic. A lot of the black community, no matter where you were, you were affected by the crack epidemic, whether it was your mother, whether it was your aunt, whether it was your uncle, whether it was your niece, whether it was your nephew, whether it was your grandparents. A lot of the black community was disenfranchised because of the crack epidemic. And it really showed itself in the 90s, but it was cultivating in the 70s and even in the 80s. Well, more so in the 80s than in the 70s. But, there was a lot that was going on for the black community in our past eras, I guess you can say, just dealing with segregation and post-segregation, with exclusionary zoning and everything, just the disenfranchisement of the black family. If the mother was doing crack, she got locked up. She didn't get placed into a rehabilitation center. She just got locked up, and the kids are at home trying to figure out, where's mom at? Where did she go? She's in jail. Dad's locked up because he's been selling drugs, and he might be a pimp. So, it's just so many different things that were happening during this time. Even if it wasn't that you were affected by the crack epidemic, there were still families that were disenfranchised due to generations of oppression. The mom is working twice as hard to make sure she puts food on the table. The dad is working twice as hard to make sure he puts food on the table. Everybody in the house is working in order to sustain a life that is, almost bearable, but they're really just surviving. But I feel like I'm rambling, but just there was a lot of inconveniences that occurred during the 80s, during the 90s. So to hear DMX say, feel the pain, feel the joy of a man who was never a boy, it's really easily understood given the era that he came from. He really had to man up as a little boy. And now you always hear this too in our generation as well, where you see some of the mothers trying to treat their son as if their son is their husband because they don't have their husband in their life or their baby father in their life. It's no, that's your son. Your son is not supposed to be your husband. Your son is not supposed to be taking care of you. No. Even when I watched the WU-TANG series or the WU-TANG trilogy, I thought it was, noble of them to want to assist their mother, but at the same time, they should not have to. But, we understand circumstances and different, you understand. I understood it, but I was just they're not supposed to be doing that. They're supposed to be kids. But because they had to do things that were, I'm running my mouth. But yeah, I love Look Through My Eyes because it really spoke volumes as to how a lot of black girls, a lot of black boys were never afforded the opportunity to be black girls or black boys. They were always seen by society. They were always seen by the community. They were always seen by their family. And then so much so by themselves as being men and women. And they're girls and they're boys. So I thought that was really interesting. Alright, so the next song that I'm going to be sharing with you all is STREETSTRUCK by Big L. This is from his album The Lifestyles of the Poor and Dangerous. And essentially, to be street struck or to be street strucken is to find solace within insanity. And I feel like a lot of this song has to do with the historic events of redlining, exclusionary zoning, where there is a lack of resources, there is a lack of equality, there is a lot of disparity within an environment that causes its people to resort to survival. Any convenience of life becomes an inconvenience when you're living in an environment that lacks quality, that lacks resources. So to be street struck is honestly from the effects of exclusionary zoning, redlining, separate but not equal. And something that I want to share with you all that I found to be extremely interesting about the album art is this little boy. There's this little boy on the back of the cover, and he's looking upward and onward. He's looking at the sky, and he's looking upward, and he's looking forward. He could have been looking to the left, he could have been looking to the right, he could have been looking down, but he was looking upward and onward. Looking at this little boy, and just as I stated previously with STREETSTRUCK, it almost symbolizes the purity of our dreams. I feel like this little boy represents the purity of our dreams. When you grow up in an environment that has been insulated to a point where you don't really know what's out there until you go out there and explore what the world has to offer unto you and what you have to offer into the world, So I feel like just looking at this little boy, he represents the purity of our dreams. If we continue to look upward and onward, the sky is not even the limit. No, because there's so many people that have been street strucking. There's so many people that have the best attributes to offer to the world and to utilize within themselves, but as opposed to using them as the attributes that they are, they use it to the detriment of themselves and to others. Street fighters fighting on the street every day. You can go and become a boxer, become a, what are they called? Oh, a UMC fighter? I don't know, a wrestler. You can use your talents for the betterment of yourself and society. You can use, listen, I'm not sure if UMC is for the betterment of society, but you know what I mean? Like, you can use it in a more beneficial way to yourself, So instead of becoming the dancer that they always wanted to become, instead of becoming the ballerina that they always wanted to become, they internalize this societal, this communal, this familial backlash of not being able to be a ballerina because you're a black woman, because you're a black man, So there's so many dreams that have been deferred. There's so many dreams that have been sacrificed. When you're growing up in environments that lack quality, you have to resort to survival to even get a shot at life. So essentially, I guess what I'm trying to say is just this little boy represents the purity of our dreams, because there's so many dreams that have become deferred. There's so many dreams that are so attainable but will never be achieved. There's so many dreams that have been sacrificed due to the betterment of the collective. They had to sacrifice individual pleasure for the betterment of their collective, for the betterment of their family, for the betterment of their marriage, certain sacrifices that had to be made due to the conveniences of life being inconvened, given the lack of quality, the lack of resources. There's so many people that have internalized what others had to say about them and their dream. Maybe from a societal standpoint, communal or familial standpoint. There's so many fears that people have internalized to a point where they have crippled themselves and are paralyzed with fear, thinking that they can't do it because they've never seen somebody else do it. Little do they know that they will be the person that, will fill that void. You know what I mean? Being the first black ballerina. A lot of people that have dreams and will forever and always dream, even if they're more qualified and talented than the next person, just being struck.